We're talking, thank you. We're talking about human stories. And all of us are in a journey, trusting more and more the person of Jesus. And maybe you're here and you're exploring who Jesus is, who God is for you. So this is a perfect community to ask questions. We hope we evoke with this type of conversation more questions in your own journey, because as a community, we believe that a real God will show up when we ask him to show up in our lives, when we're seeking. And we believe that he's seeking us as well in this journey, that he's tagging our heart. And this is why you're here. This is why you want to explore this much in a much deeper way. So in this series of being a human, once again, we're talking about the beauty of our humanity, that we're created in the image of God. And also we're talking about the messiness, the complexity of, or how complex we are as humans. And we've been exploring this idea of living out our humanity, and also living out the fact that we're created in the image of God, the beauty that comes with that. Today, you're going to hear a story by Candice, and it's going to be more like an interview type of story, where we're going to just see the journey that God has Candice for the last 8 months. She's been in this journey, and this started a long time ago, but deeper in terms of understanding who Jesus is. So you're going to hear a little story. This is going to be a little bit improv and messy, guys. I'm going to ask her maybe some questions that come on the spot, and she's going to tell me some things that she feels in her heart at that moment. So thank you for being a community who embraces this openness. And before we get there, there's something that I want to share with you. It's a clip from a movie called The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. And this is going to set up, I think, the journey a little bit in where I want to take you for today. This whole idea is about Walter, who has a job that basically he documents other people's adventures, but he's never been in an adventure himself. And here's where I want you to compare where we're going. That some of us, perhaps, we think we know Jesus, or we heard things about Jesus, but we have not explored Jesus on our own. We haven't dig deep for ourselves. And all that we know about God is a religion, a way we grew up doing certain traditions, believing certain things. And this is a community who is asking you and asking ourselves to daily seek Jesus in a personal way, to daily explore not what we think tradition should tell us about a belief system, but really what does it look like for us to seek Jesus, the person of Jesus, and how he becomes a real person in our lives, a real God in each one of our lives. So in this journey, I invite you to ask questions in terms of knowing who Jesus is for you. And this is the same story that we want you to experience Jesus on your own. So here is a little bit of this movie, a little video, so it can set us up for where we're going for our conversation. All right. Well, I wanted to start with that video because I feel you've been in a journey and literally taking off this journey in terms of who Jesus is, what spirituality looks like in your life. And thank you, first of all, for allowing us to be part of this journey. Thank you for being courageous to share and be vulnerable with all of us of what this journey has been like. And I want to begin just by asking you, tell us a little bit about how you grew up, the context of God and spirituality of you growing up.
Okay. I'm looking at that one, right?
This one.
Okay. So I was baptized when I was about 1 year old, and my mother was from Catholicism, and I discovered something in the conversation this morning is I felt that I didn't really have a connection to that baptism because I was only a year old. But this most recent baptism was kind of that reconnection to what my family declared for me back then. And what else can I say about it?
Well, I would love, depending on how vulnerable you want to be, but what you share with me of you growing up.
Okay. Yeah, growing up, I felt that the going to church was more of like a doing the going to church, and it felt like I didn't get to know who Jesus was or really who God was outside of what the priest or the pastor would say to me. Or even in Sunday school, you know, I loved going to Sunday school, and I did the oh gosh,
Professional.
it's
Catechism?
in Catholicism, we do the confession, and then we do the confirmation. Yeah, that's how it works. Or the communion. We do communion, and then we do the other one. Anyway, I felt connected to them. I felt that there was something there, but I never felt that it was really reinforced at home outside of pray the rosary or go to church. There was that communication, if you will, that was missing. And with my, you know, I grew up in a household where it was stably unstable. I got used to things being pretty unstable, so I created stability in that. Like my mother began drinking when I was 16, and it was shortly after my ex-stepfather left our home, and my ex-stepfather was verbally, emotionally, sexually, physically abusive from about the time I was 8 or 10 till the time I was 16. And it was a lot of these things that were in my reality that I didn't know how to deal with. And it's interesting because before that, I identified with the Footprints poem. Had anybody experienced the Footprints poem? And when you're walking in the sand, yeah, and Jesus says, well, in the most difficult times, or the man says, why in the most difficult of times was there only one set of footprints? And Jesus said, well, those are the times that I carried you. But for me, I felt that because I wasn't taught that communication with Jesus, I felt that I was walking myself. And so I remember the day I took that poem down off of my wall, and it was in the height of the abuse and the all of the experiences that I was going through, that I was like, kind of like, well, F this, like this poem means nothing to me anymore, because this has been going on for years and years and years, and God, you're not saving me. That's what I made up. And yeah, I remember taking it off the wall and kind of swearing that God was not going to really be a part of my life, because I made up that he wasn't there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And when was a moment in your life where you walk away, like not completely from God, but kind of start seeking and trying to say, I want to find God on my own? And why did that lead you to?
Yeah, I heard two different things. Probably that was the moment I decided that I was going to be agnostic, I think they call it. Is that the one where you believe in a higher power, but you don't think it's God or something like that? And started kind of going with the flow of all my friends who didn't believe in God. I announced it to my family, and I was perfectly okay with this path. And when oh gosh, my whole life I've received these like premonitions, these visions, these knowings. I mean, seemingly my mother said before I was even 18, these things would happen. I would have dreams and they would happen. And I never really put a lot of faith in them. And when I became a nurse, so I felt called to become a nurse, and I always knew I would be in healthcare. God told me. Well, now I say God told me, but back then I didn't really know what it was. I felt so called to actually be a pediatric pulmonologist. I dedicated my whole life to becoming a pediatric pulmonologist. And I ended up a nurse in bone marrow stem cell transplant, oncology, and hospice. And what I realized is I started like seeing things that I couldn't explain, seeing people's like their soul, like there's this energy in the room of people passing away that I couldn't experience, and these visions that I would see when people were passing away that I couldn't explain. And right about that time when I started seeing these visions and being able to communicate with people passing away, I went on FMLA leave, family medical leave of absence, and I pretty much slept on my couch for almost 4 months because I hadn't dealt with the trauma that my body was going through. I wanted so badly to be present in the world, but my body was like, in my nervous system, because of the abuse, I'd learned to just shut everything out.
Because of trauma.
Yeah. And I hadn't made that bridge, that connection yet.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting on my couch and I staring at the ceiling and saying, like, God, I'm just ready. Please take my life. Like, on paper, it looked like I had everything. I had a great job. I was dating this guy. I had bought a house right out of college. I had a beautiful car. Like, I had all the things, but I was so deeply unhappy. I remember staring at the ceiling and saying, God, I'm tired of this life. Like, there's literally nothing here for me on the planet anymore. And please just take my life. I mean, every day I would wake up to just stare at the ceiling and contemplate ways to end my life. Mm-hmm. That's where I was at, because the emotional pain, it's interesting because I wanted that reassociation so bad, but the way it looked, I associated it with pain mm-hmm. and hurt versus like seeing it as the gift of Jesus saying, you want this so badly. Here, I'm going to gift it to you, but I didn't know how to see it as the gifts coming back online, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. And what comes up to me, like, you had to first heal certain areas, certain trauma in order to see it.
Yeah. I did. And God sent me this vision. It's funny. I was actually talking about this with somebody else the other day, and I hadn't told this part of my story. I had this, so many of you have heard a lot of my stories about meditating and visions and things. And this one key vision that I had in that experience when I was staring at the ceiling, asking God to take my life, is I had a dream or a vision of being at like a train station. And this train station was so full of white light. And I remember sitting on this bench and waiting for somebody to come. And eventually this someone came, and I could not only explain it, but calling it God came, and he sat down next to me. And I don't remember exactly what occurred, but I said, I'm ready. Like, I just don't want to be here anymore. Like, please just end all of this. And he said, well, take my hand and I'm going to show you something. I remember calling my tita, she's very devout Catholic, and we talk all the time. So she's been kind of my anchor with God. I remember calling her right after this and telling her about this. I'm like, Tita, I saw this thing and I have to tell you about this. Is this what heaven looks like? And so God takes me through this white light, this blinding white light, down the tunnel of the train station. And it looks like there's trains moving, but I can't really see them. And I go to this place and it looked like an island. This was just my experience. I'm not saying this is what heaven looks like or that I went to heaven or anything, but this was just the message, how God formulated a message to me. Is there was this, man, I haven't shared this in a long time. This is deeply in one of my journals from years ago. I remember writing this out. There was these trees and the sun was this gold color I'd never seen before, this like golden ray of sun that I'd never seen before, like gold that you could feel in your body, and the water that was all around me. It felt like, and I'm like really thirsty just thinking about like how quenched I felt, how satiated I felt drinking this water from this island, and just meadows and people. There were people all over the place, and they were talking and they were having these conversations, and I'm being led by this man who I related to God. And then I'm thinking, was there anything else related in this vision?
Hurry up, because
Oh yeah,
I want to jump in into so many things that you're saying right now.
So yeah, well, I'll bring it back, and I remember the animals. It was such a beautiful experience. And then coming back to the train station, you know, God then brought me back. I'm assuming this was the vision that God was giving me, you know, at the time. I'm assuming, okay, now I know different, but he brought me back to the train station, and he said something equivalent to, but you're meant for so much more. You can go here, but you're meant for so much more, and it's your choice. It's your choice to be in or out. But he said something that I just felt that he said, I have a plan for you. And I'm not saying, I also want to make it clear, I definitely did not change my life after this. Like, I'll get into that after.
Okay.
But that was
something
that was the defining moment. And then I called my tita, and I'm like, Tita, I saw this place, and there was this man there, and here's what I saw. And she said, it sounds like you were gifted a piece of heaven. And that was in 2000. I graduated college in 2009. So about 2010.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And if you were paying attention, like, so many things came to you if you've been following Jesus for a long time, because I don't know if somebody, and this is the beauty, by the way, of walking alongside, because I don't know if somebody has told you these things, but a lot of what you just shared, like, Jesus has an encounter with a woman and tells him, I am the living water. If you drink of me, your thirst is gonna be satisfied. You're never gonna be thirsty again. And obviously, it wasn't talking. I don't think you know that we didn't plan this, guys. By the way, I did not know that story. I did not. And it's so beautiful that you've been in this journey, open to God, and you see the grace of this God. Because you've been saying it's not that changed. There were still things that I was, you know, either a slave to, or habits that I built, and yet God has always carry me and be present in my life when I'm open and I choose God. There were so many things that you say in that dream that is just, and I wouldn't say, I don't know, like, great. I love the idea of a piece of heaven, and also a way that when you read the scriptures, everything that you're seeing in your life all of a sudden is like, that makes sense. Wow, that makes sense. This is so beautiful what you've just shared, because this is ways that the person of Jesus has been described with people in community, water, satisfying our thirst, light. You know, he is trees, the light of the life. Yes, like life. That's the garden, like trees. There was a tree of life. Like, there's so many nuances. Beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. Another thing I want to say too, as a community, one of the things why we lean heavily into conversation and Q&R is because we know there's this area of knowing Jesus, and there's this area also of healing trauma or healing emotional pain. And we want to dive into those areas so we can be humans that are completely healed. That is not that we just, our spiritual life and our rational life, we understand Jesus, is actually that we allow him to heal certain areas in our life. In that journey, we're constantly, as a community, in that journey of trusting Jesus more, and he coming into our life, bringing certain emotions, certain things of our past up to the surface, and us allowing him to heal. Because if we were healed by people, we believe we can be healed by people as we do community. with each other as we are. This is why you hear us talking about authenticity, vulnerability, because the same way we experience pain in our life, this could be an opportunity. If you show up open and authentic, this could be an opportunity to also experience healing. As other people used by God to speak life into you, hear what you went through, and help you see a different side, perhaps, of your past traumatic experience.
Wow.
Um,
Many things.
so something that I want to go a little bit deeper into, if we can. You start seeking God into Reiki, and you had can you describe what Reiki is, first of all? And can you also describe kind of that idea of darkness and light, and you trying to figure out, seeking, like, I don't want to do this, God, if this is dark, and can be as authentic as you want.
Yeah. So right around the time I moved to San Diego, I became pretty heavily involved in partying. I'm almost like really embarrassed to like admit all of that stuff. So this was back in 2015, and I was drinking, I was snorting drugs, like Adderall, cocaine, kind of sweating telling this part of my story. Man, pretty much everything. And I made up that I was like looking for the fun of it, because we had a lot of fun. Like, I'll keep it real and say we had a lot of fun, but like I'll call it the bathroom conversation, which was like the conversation in the back of my head as I'm doing drugs and party drugs and all the other things, was like there was always a conversation in the back of my mind of like this like depression and darkness and heaviness, and I'm like, what is this? There's like a fear of that. And right alongside of it, I started developing in spiritual coaching. I started hiring spiritual coaches at the time. So Reiki was a big part of that. And I'll get into what Reiki is. And I kind of made up in my mind that if I was partying with people that also were on a spiritual path, that it was safer. Like, I made up these kind of, I know, like silly excuses. But again, that bathroom conversation was how much I wanted all of my body to come back online, but trying to dull it or make it last a long time by doing more drugs or calling off of work so I could party or things like that. And with Reiki, when I would go in and have a Reiki session, and again, I'll explain what Reiki is, I felt like it was a place for my body to become calm and settled, and to reassociate and reconnect those pieces glimpses that I got when I was doing drugs or drinking or out partying with my friends to heavens forsake hours of the night / morning. It's like I was searching for that reconnection, that reassociation. And when the Reiki practitioner would guide his or her hands over my body to hold space, it was all of those pieces coming back online, which was essentially what I had been asking for all along, but I didn't see it in the scripture. I didn't hear it in the scripture. So I related it outside of God, because when I then started taking the Reiki classes and attuning my body in the way that Reiki taught, there was never the God component to it. It was only the healing. And so with Reiki, and there's many different forms of Reiki, of energy work, if you will. And it starts with attuning the body to receive and hear messages. And I want to say also, I went to massage therapy school in 2014, and there's a modality previous to me stepping into Reiki, which is called craniosacral therapy. And it's can I just borrow you for a moment to demonstrate? With craniosacral therapy, you're placing your hands somewhere on the body to essentially relieve pressure from the vertebrae. But the client is lying down. So you're holding on their head, you're holding on their forehead, or you're holding somewhere. And when I was in these modalities, I started seeing people's memories. I could literally see childhood memories. I could see memories of abuse. I could see childbirth, things that I otherwise never would have had the knowledge of, and I could see them plainly in my mind. So I started seeking the answers, like, why on earth would I be able to see things that I can't explain? Yeah. Which goes back to when I was 18 and having been, what does all this mean? Yeah. Meanwhile, my body coming back online. So with Reiki, I seem to find the answer that I could, like, can I borrow your hand? Like, with Reiki, they teach like a attunement, if you will. And attunement means, like, to break down the word in Latin, it basically means to turn on, which is like to turn on the receptors that lie inside the hands, so that then when you place a hand onto a human body or just above the human body, you can interpret a message that comes between the hand and here. Yeah. Reiki also has these symbols. It gives I want to give this in a non-biased way, because I definitely feel quite a bit differently about Reiki now.
And when we can go there, like
I definitely want to go there.
Yeah.
There's a set of symbols that you use, and these symbols mean a certain type of healing that is able to be processed when you place the symbol on the body. And right around the time I was receiving my Reiki mastership, and Reiki mastership essentially means you're gifted a master symbol. And it's interesting, like, it used to make so much sense, and now it like makes no sense to me whatsoever. So I'm wanting to bring it back there. And then you're also able to teach others how to attune their bodies to receive messages, to hear messages on behalf of others, and to facilitate Reiki treatments on essentially anybody and from a distance. So that's what Reiki mastership is. And I was in class, and mind you, I had a moment before this, even I went into my Reiki mastership, where I called out of work and I'm lying on my bed. I lived in San Diego in Little Italy at the time. And I just sat there and I'm like, God, what do you want me to do with my life? I obviously, I don't want to be a nurse anymore. I feel so strongly called to leave my nursing profession. But what do I do? And shortly after that, I had one of my Reiki mastership classes, and they wanted us to do a report on the angels. But these angels were based off of someone's tarot cards. And I was like, it felt like kind of like a stop in my heart. Like, I'm sure if any of you are pretty attuned to energy, you can feel that, because I'm playing with it right now in my energy. But I didn't even want to go to the class. And I remember going to the class, and this is a woman I'd been seeing for a couple of years for Reiki treatments and getting training. And I was like, I don't like this. There's something going on in my body where my body's like, you need to leave class right now. This is not the truth. And that's what because my body was like I wanted to close in. I felt this like cringing in my heart and my body. And finally I said, well, what am I supposed to do? And my body said, you have to leave this class. You need to leave class. And so I just listened. Literally in the middle of class, we were only 30 minutes in, and I packed all my stuff and I walked out. I didn't say anything to anybody. And I didn't even think of being embarrassed of all the people I'd been studying with. And when I went home, I called the facilitator and I said, I don't agree with these angels that you're talking about on these cards. there's something that just doesn't line up to me. And she said, well, what does line up to you? And I said, you know what? The Catholic saints. I know, I knew you would love this. I'm like, the Catholic saints. And she said, why did they resonate with you versus what the tarot cards or whatever say? And I'd say, well, one is based off of the Bible and one I know is the truth. And I said, I don't feel, and I told her just blatantly honest, I said, these angels that someone else thought of and put on these cards, there's something that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
There's something not right here. And I believe in the Catholic saints. I will do a report on my top favorite 7 Catholic saints. So I went into the Bible, I went into all the resources that my Tita gave me, and I'm like, Tita, tell me about this Catholic saint. Tell me about this person. She's like, oh, I'm going to send you this stuff and these scriptures and these things. And that's when like that energy that I felt, that heaviness started to break away. And I'm like, this feels like the truth.
And I think there was something also where you experienced darkness, even in the midst of helping people. You will get messages and you will be like, I don't know where this is coming from. I don't know this is good. Even there's an energy that I'm feeling that's not good. And I can do something with it, but I don't know if I want to continue leaning in. And that was always powerful for me to hear this from you, because I didn't even like, you were telling me these stories, that I was like, when we go and ask God to show up, and in your case, ask angels, guides, we're opening ourselves up, and we may get messages, we may get things, when it's that question, where are this coming from? Do they like, how do I know?
That was fearful, because I learned this one way, and in an overnight, it seemed that I just, like when I would meditate and I would be called to go in deeper, there was this tremendous amount of fear. And every client that I was having was feeling the same way. Well, if I drop away, am I going to be infiltrated by evil spirits? Am I going to be there was constantly this like call for education on how to not be infiltrated by evil spirits. And how do I train that? How do I facilitate that when I'm fearful myself? And when I'd go home and try to let go and surrender, I kept feeling that fear. And I'm like, doesn't feel right either. There's something blocking me here. There's something, and you know what? That fear, that heaviness, that discomfort, that was the thing that kept coming up when I was doing all the drugs. That was literally in the way of me feeling my body. And I would just do more so I could feel my body. But it was just, just crazy that this is interesting right now.
And this is for me where I wanna guide us in the last part is in the last we how long ago I met you, Candice? 2 years ago?
In 2019. In
well,
October
we met. I guess we met a while back, but we started conversations about 2 years ago, like deeper,
2 years ago,
deeper conversations. And one of the things that I noticed hearing her story, one of the things that I start doing with Candice is she's like, okay, David, well, tell me about your God. Like, what is the difference between your God and what I'm practicing? Or what is the difference between your God and the messages I receive? And for me, something happened that it hasn't happened like often, that rather than just telling her my point of view, I asked God to show her who God was. And whenever she came with a question, like one of her very first questions, she said, David, okay, what does it mean to make Jesus, or to put Jesus in my heart? Like, what does that mean? And in order for me to, instead of telling, whoa, Jesus means this and this and this and this, because I knew she had some Catholic background, I asked her, why don't you pray that? God, what does it look like for you to be the Lord of my life? And I don't know if you guys remember, but I remember clearly about 3 days later, she came into this community, and the Q&R, I don't even know what we talked about, but on that Q&R, she went like, I had a vision, I had a dream, the Messiah is coming. Remember that? That was like a few days before.
Remember that.
Yes, that was a few days before I asked her, ask God, ask God. And God told in a vision, like the Messiah is coming. And then I was like, and she goes, what does that mean? And I'm like, why don't you ask God? What does it mean the Messiah is coming? And she did. And she started coming and say, I'm seeing Jesus everywhere.
The
Jesus.
license plate.
Jesus, like when I ask God, what does it mean to make or to trust in the Messiah? I constantly see Jesus, 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 Jesus. And she will literally text me like on random things. And I'm like, okay. So now God already told you, what does it mean to that there's something about Jesus that is not just God, not just a spirituality, is Jesus. So let's not ask questions. And she came up with this question, which I thought was great because of her journey. You're gonna agree with me. She started asking God, what do I need to stop in my life in order for you? Or what something with your heart? You say something like, what do I need to, like, what do I not stop, but what do I have to do in order to receive you as my personal Messiah? I think it was something along those lines. She was writing all these things down. And she started praying from the point of view of God removing something, because I believe you've been exposed to so much stuff. And in order for you to continue be not like making up your own religion, really, with everything that you put together, in order for you to continue be grounded in Jesus, is going to the source and you asking him and he answering you, and you coming to a community and saying, what does that mean? Like, I heard this. What do you guys think about this? And I thought that was a very unique part of your story. And then later, again, with something with baptism. And you, when we met for baptism, she goes, David, when you used to talk about Jesus, I could talk about God and his spirituality all day long, but Jesus just triggered me. Jesus used to trigger me. And now, and she told me this, looking me in the eyes, she was like, but now I see Jesus as my personal savior. And when you say that, I sense no like fumbling of words or nervousness, like I was like, wow, you're ready to take the first step. So thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for always being wanting to not leave it in the surface and dig underneath. This is God carrying you this whole time in his arms. For us, I share this constantly with you guys. We're starting a journey of discipleship with her. She's saying yes to the next 40 days to walk alongside. And we're going to dive in deeper into the scriptures, hearing God's voice, recognizing God's voice, same with all the people who are saying yes to baptism. So thank you, Candice, for your amazing story.
You're welcome. Thank you. Oh, can I say one more thing?
Sure.
One more thing that's coming up is about changing my mind about Jesus. I felt very called to share this, is the resistance. I had so much resistance to Jesus, as David mentioned, like, if I have God in my life, why do I need this Jesus person? And being willing to surrender everything that, like, I brought myself to a place that I was willing to be inaccurate about everything I'd made up about Jesus and about God, truly. And I'm grateful honestly, for leadership, for bringing me to that space and giving me the tools that I could unprogram all of that stuff and all of the stuff from the past.
You're all
right. To come to Jesus and say, well, I may have no idea who you are. In fact, I make up that I don't. So being in a space, even now, all of my prayer is almost like as if I have no idea who you are. What is it that you need to show me so I know you more?
Yes.
So even my prayers now, as they've gone from Jesus, teach me, show me why I'm so resistant to you. I literally, that was one of my first prayers, was like, I'm so resistant to hearing this Jesus person. But Jesus, can you show me something? Because I don't know why I'm so resistant to you. I don't know what's up with that.
Yeah.
And I was resistant everywhere in my life, knowing that. And dropping that, surrendering, being free in myself. Now, everything I ask, every time I come up against a resistance or a feeling that I'm lost or uncertain, I just go to Jesus with it and I say, I'm lost. I feel uncertain. What am I meant to see to keep walking with you today?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, and now I feel complete.
Yes. Thank you, Candice.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah. That was church for today, guys. Yes. Thank you, Candice, for being courageous. What I would love to do is those of you who are part of Experience Church, obviously we want to see more stories like Candice. This is why we do what we do, engaging with people in every with every past experience, every culture, every language. We want to engage because we believe in a God that is showing up, and a God who is alive, who is calling and tagging people's hearts. And we're just his vessels. We're just a tool he's using in this journey. So